Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and welcome back to Another Timeline, Another Life, our review retrospective series on David Warner as the Unbound Doctor. We have 2 videos left before this series ends. This is the penultimate video and the final review. Stick around to the end to see what's coming next. If you're a regular subscriber to my channel, or if you've seen my videos before, you probably already have an idea. But today, we are looking at Dark Gallifrey, Season 2, The War Master, Part 1. Released in July of 2024, written by James Goss, directed by Scott Hancock. The War Master Part 1 stars David Warner as the Unbound Doctor and Lisa Bowerman as Bernice Summerfield. As always, because I do these unscripted, I am putting a blanket spoiler warning in place, just in case I do decide to talk about spoilers. If you don't wish to be spoiled, then in the description box below is the link to Big Finish's website, where you can purchase Dark Gallifrey Season 2, The War Master Part 1. I'm gonna kinda divide this video into 3 segments. My overall vague thoughts on the story itself, and then kind of explaining what Dark Gallifrey is, because it's relatively new. Excuse me. And then getting into my more specific, maybe more spoilery thoughts. I have to say, I was very disappointed with this story. I think I know what the big issue was for me, and we'll talk about that more when I get into specifics, but before going into this one, I had friends who listened to it who said they really liked it. They said it was a good story. They said it was a nice send-off for Warner. And I'm sorry, it's just, I listened to it. I just didn't like it at all, and I have my theories as to why. That being said, the performances are solid. David Warner is still giving it his all. I don't think I should have to repeat what I said in my Blood and Steel and Time Lord Immemorial reviews, because that is still in effect here. He is giving a solid performance, but I feel like the writing for the Doctor is very weak here. You know, it's just, he's just there, you know? There's nothing about his character, nothing specific. Warner is giving it his all, but it is obvious from this script he doesn't have material to work with. Comparatively, Lisa Bowerman as Bernice Summerfield is kind of the show stealer here. She gets a lot of amazing scenes in this story, and she still does play off of David Warner really well. They still have great chemistry together, and their scenes together are really good. So before I get into my issues with this story and what holds it back from being great, despite having really good things about it, what is Dark Gallifrey? Dark Gallifrey is Big Finish's latest spin-off. When it was first announced, there was speculation that, at least there was from me, I don't know about other people, that this, as to whether this was going to be its own thing, or if it was going to be the latest incarnation of Big Finish's long-running spin-off, Gallifrey. Because ever since it started, Gallifrey has gone through a few evolutions, like it went from single releases to box sets. I think there were a couple of miniseries in there, like Intervention Earth, and then there was Gallifrey Time War, and now its current incarnation, Gallifrey War Room. There was speculation whether or not Dark Gallifrey was going to be the next evolution. It's not. Dark Gallifrey is its own thing. The premise of Dark Gallifrey is that it is a collection of miniseries, with each series starring a different Time Lord villain. So, like, I'm gonna be honest, I was gonna say the Renegades for a second, but that's not quite the case. The Renegades are something different entirely. If you're unfamiliar with Doctor Who, the Renegades are a group of Time Lords who kind of left Gallifrey, because, you know, Gallifrey is very isolationist, very, what's a good word? Very stuck up, you know, very, Time Lord focused. They only care about themselves, but the Renegades sort of turned their backs on Gallifrey and left it to explore the universe for their own ends, whatever they may be. You know, the Doctor, the Master, the Monk, the Ronnie. These are the Renegades. Several of the Renegades are Time Lord villains, but not all Time Lord villains are Renegades. Most notably Rassilon in this instance. But anyway, as I was saying, so every miniseries of Dark Gallifrey, which it's looking like, given that the first 2 seasons are coming out, the first one is completed, the second one is in the middle of releasing. Each miniseries will consist of 3 stories starring or focusing on a different Time Lord. And it's not official, it's not a real thing. I'm just giving them season numbers based on when they're releasing. So, like, season 1 was Morbius, from the brain of Morbius, and there was also an 8th Doctor audio he was in. I've not heard it myself, but apparently it wasn't good. Season 2, which is releasing right now, is The War Master. And then we know some of the other seasons that are coming out. I don't know the order. We don't know what the order is yet, but we know, like, Rufus Hound as the monk is getting a season. Gemma Whelan as the nun is getting a season. As for the Master, we know Eric Roberts and Michelle Gomez are getting seasons. I don't know if Rassilon is. Those are what we know for sure at the moment. I think Alex McQueen might be getting one. I don't know. But that's where we are. So, like I said, we are currently in the middle of Season 2, The War Master. The first story has come out already. The final 2 stories have yet to come out, and I don't think we know what Season 3 is going to be at this point. Beyond this story, and again, I'll talk more about this in the spoilers as well, the remainder of Season 2 is going to star Lisa Bowerman as Bernice Summerfield, Derek Jacobi as the War Master, my favorite master, and James Masters as Captain John. So now let's get into my big issues with this story. First of all, the format too is really interesting. I want to say that as well. Because it's told out of sequence. It's told out of order. There are scenes that play out that obviously don't go together. And in part 2, it's because the story is being told backwards. Like the way the story opens, Bernice is giving this speech about how, as archaeologists, they start at the end, and it's their job to go back to the beginning. And that's what this story is. It starts with Bernice and the Doctor coming to the end of their travels, fleeing from what the threat they were facing was, and working backwards to the beginning, while I think splintering off at different points and going into alternate timelines. Now here's the big problem with The War Master Part 1. According to the behind the scenes, there is an ant or something crawling across my camera, and it's bugging me, and I don't want to flick it, but I'm also worried right now. I want to wait until I'm done, but I'm also worried that it's going to crawl across the lens at one point. Anyway, sorry, bit of a tangent. The big problem with The War Master Part 1 is, in the behind the scenes, according to the writer James Goss and the director Scott Hancock, this is the coda for Dark Gallifrey, the series as a whole. This is the epilogue. And it's being done here as the first story of the second season. I think that's the first major problem for me, because if this is the coda, if this is the epilogue, there is a lot of context to this story that I feel like is missing. Like, there are things that it's like, I think you should have waited until the series was over to release this so I could understand what was going on, because it did just make me feel lost. It's also kind of disappointing too, because that idea makes it seem to be going against that initial announcement of Dark Gallifrey, because Big Finish said it's like, these miniseries were essentially sort of writer-led passion projects. Like, they wanted to do their own things and do it with these characters. And then season 1, Morbius, according to other people, because I haven't heard Morbius myself yet, there were started plant seeds of a season arc. Like, it's not called Dark Gallifrey because it's a villain-led series. There is a plot point, a plot device called Dark Gallifrey throughout this series. Also, the other problem with this is that if this is the coda or the epilogue, then if every Time Lord villain is getting their own miniseries of 3 stories, you shorted Derek Jacobi a story. Like, this story has nothing to do with the War Master, which is a little disappointing. I would have loved to have heard an interaction between David Warner's Doctor and Derek Jacobi's Master, and not even in the good way, because after that first series of War Master releases, Only the Good, where the Master was the POV character, the War Master series pivoted to where Derek Jacobi was the antagonist. Like, we had other protagonists, other POV characters, so that the War Master could be the antagonist, where even if he wasn't on screen, or, well, on screen because it's an audio, or even if he wasn't present, you could still feel his influence working on the story, and you don't get that here. Like, this just feels like such a weird spot to release this story. And also, like I just said, the format, this story is told from backwards, from the end to the beginning, as well as being out of sequence. Normally that's an interesting thing, and the audio stories I've heard where it does that, does it really well. But again, because this is the epilogue to the series as a whole, and we're missing vital context, this time around it does end up being much more confusing. Now, like I said, Warner and Bowerman are both giving strong, solid performances, and they do have some great scenes. You know, like there's a scene where Benny is basically talking to Ace after she's died. Like, I don't know the context. I don't know if she's at a grave or is at a service of some kind, but she is talking to Ace after she's died. And she has this really heartfelt moment about seeing everything she's been through with the Doctor, seeing all the different ways and times Ace has died. Similarly, Bowerman and the Doctor have some great interactions together, especially in the little timeline fractures. Like, there's a scene where Benny accuses the Doctor of using her, saying that he used her desire to be recognized, you know, to have that famous find. He used that desire so she could find Dark Gallifrey. And then, you know, we get a timeline fracture and the shoe is on the other foot. Now, the Doctor is accusing Benny of using him for similar reasons. There is a lot of good scenes like that again, because they are missing the context of what the entire series is, just kind of fall flat. Also, throughout this story, there is this running theme of, you know, Benny discovered Dark Gallifrey, and, you know, discovered mysterious rumors of this Dark Gallifrey, sort of the antithesis of everything Gallifrey is. She wanted to find it. The Doctor kind of says not to, but he secretly prods her into doing so. And then they unleash this threat called the... God, I always forget this name. I think it's like the Inbomination or something. Again, just some kind of Time Lord monster that sort of feeds on paradoxes and, you know, Time Lord nonsense. Let's just go with that. And again, it's like, look, okay, I'm just going to go to the wrap-up, because otherwise I'm just going to sound like a broken record here. The War Master Part 1 just doesn't land with me. Being the epilogue to this series, there is just so much context missing for what's happening in this story. So these moments that should be interesting are falling flat. And a story format, which is normally interesting, just further adds to the confusion. Bowerman and Warner give great performances, and they have a few standout scenes, but that's all they are. They're just a few seeds of greatness in a forest of blah. I don't even want to call it bad, because again, it's just, it doesn't work because I don't have the context of what's going on. And I will say that for a last hurrah for the Unbound Doctor and for a send-off for David Warner, Time Lord in Memorial was just so much better. But those are just my thoughts. Have you heard Dark Gallifrey Season 2, The War Master Part 1? If so, what are yours? Start a conversation in the comments below. And remember to like, comment, subscribe. Click the bell next to subscribe to get notifications when I upload, and in the description box below you'll find the link to my socials where you can follow me and get updates on the channel. This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and I'll see you guys next time for our final video of another timeline, another life, when we count down what are David Warner's Unbound Doctor's top 10 best stories.